Hello and welcome. I'm Kamla. My guest today is Rachel Rosen. She's the Director of Programming at the San Francisco Film Society that every year hosts the San Francisco International Film Festival. We're going to be talking to Rachel about what it takes to become a programmer. Rachel usually is behind the scenes, organizing the films and all the different events that take place at various festivals, including the International Film Festival. But today we are taking you behind the scenes and talking to Rachel, and we get to see a little bit of Rachel today. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us about this upcoming International Film Festival, which is your annual centerpiece event that takes place in the spring every year?
It does, yes. So this is the 59th edition of the San Francisco International Film Festival. It's the oldest film festival in the Americas. And it is a huge showcase of what is best in cinema in any given year.
All over the world?
All over the world, yes.
Okay. So, and you are tasked with selecting the films?
I am.
You're the curator?
I am.
How do you go, I hate to use the word scavenging for films. How do you go and find these films that many of us get to see for the first time at the festival?
Yeah, so part of a film programmer's job is kind of like being a private detective. And part is a little bit more known, meaning, so each year we take submissions to the festival, and that we just try and let as many people as we can know that the fall is here and we're looking at films for the spring.
So that's the known quantity.
Exactly. So we advertise a call for entries. After 59 years, we have some pretty good relationships with filmmakers and national agencies, film schools who would submit films to us. But even though we get over 3,000 entries for each festival, we're not content to just look at those films to choose. Over 3,000.
This is the known quantity, 3,000.
3,000, yeah. 3,200 about this year is the known quantity. But that's not, we want to make sure that we're seeing as much as we can. So we also do a little detective work, or networking, you could call it. So there's a little programming team. It's not me, myself, who's doing it all on my own. But we each get in touch with a bunch of contacts each year. So for instance, if there was a filmmaker at the festival one year who was showing their first film, and they came to the festival, we might get in touch with them and say, hey, we love your film so much. Are you part of a group of filmmakers? Is there anything you've seen that you think would fit into the sensibility of the festival or that you think is exciting going on?
So you initiate the conversation with them?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. And then based on that, you decide whether you want to bring their film or films.
Well, then we'll get in touch with people that we've heard are making films that might be ready and ask them if they will let us take a look at them to consider for the festival.
How many months in advance do you start looking? Do you start looking, for instance, in 2016, the Cannes Film Festival has taken place already?
No, it's right after our film festival.
Oh, it's right after
May.
you. So
yeah.
you look at the 2015 Cannes Festival then. When do you start? When do you start? A year before?
It's really a year-round process. So I would say even a little bit more than a year before.
Oh.
So for example, the Berlin Film Festival is the big international film festival that happens right at the time we're finishing our program for the spring.
That's the big major festival that starts the year actually in the world, right?
Well, Sundance, in
Sundance,
America,
yes.
and then Berlin in the world, I guess. But
Yeah.
they're both pretty internationally important. So we'll go to both those festivals. And we'll watch a lot of films there, and we'll invite films from Berlin, but often we need to know what's in the program right at the time Berlin is ending, and so sometimes those films aren't ready to start their international festival journey. So we may show some things from Berlin, but it may come that the next year has come, and some of those films haven't shown in San Francisco.
Oh.
And so sometimes those end up in our program. So, I would say we're trying to keep on top of what's being made and what's coming up all year round.
So it's a 24/7 job, 365 days. How do you watch a film? Do you have a bucket list? Do you have a rating sheet? How do you know? Because if you're seeing all these films, you need to have some system by which you select these films.
Yeah, I mean, I personally take notes in a notebook. I don't have we do.
Do you have a strategy?
The strategy is, really to stay open and engaged. That's the strategy. Because, we know what the audiences we have respond to, but I also know that there are audiences that haven't experienced the film festival yet that might like something. And I think the trick for a programmer is to stay open to what they're watching, because that way in which the familiar starts to seem good, but maybe it's not good, it's just familiar. So I think the trap to fall into is just seeing something and saying like, oh yeah, that's exactly like that film we showed last year that everyone loved.
So you have to resist the impulse to compare.
Well, we still do it, believe me, because, it happens.
We are humans.
Yeah, but also sometimes like I'll see something and I'll react negatively to it. And then I'll think about it and think like, actually, it was just that it was different and I wasn't prepared for it, not that it wasn't good. So for me, the strategy is to really engage each film individually and open-mindedly.
So do you have a notebook you take notes in?
I do, yeah. And that's partly also because I'm watching so many movies that sometimes when we go to write about them, I want to remember little details that will enrich my description of them so that I can, it's quite a responsibility to try and get people to come to these films that we love, because we have, 60 or 70 words to tell people what it is we think is worthwhile about them. It's more than Twitter.
It's more than Twitter.
It is. It is. But not that much more than Twitter.
So when you take these notes, is that what then helps you decide which films to bring in?
Yeah, I will say the really memorable films, you don't need the notes. They stand out.
Gotcha.
But there's also, where programming having to do with each individual film and how we feel about that, but we're also shaping a whole. So programming is as much about like choosing good films, but it's also about narrowing things down and molding a program that makes sense for what the mission of the Film Society is, for what area we are in and screening for. And so there are a whole lot of things that we need to balance.
So what is the mission of the Film Society?
The mission of the Film Society is to celebrate films and filmmaking by applying what we would call our Bay Area values.
Which is?
Well, it's a little bit intangible. It's one of those things that we think we know what they are, but it has to do with innovation. It has to do with open-mindedness and inclusivity and appreciation.
Those are the values.
Those are some of the values.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, you had 3,000 odd films to look at, and you have whittled it down to how many films this year?
Well, I would say 174 and counting.
Oh, and so you add films at the end?
We do. So, at a certain point, we have to publish a program guide so that people know what we're showing. But often, we leave a few spaces to announce things that aren't in the program guide.
Which is what you would be negotiating at the back when these films have to be brought in. That's your task. That's the task.
That's one of the
tasks that you have. So you've got 174 and counting films. And what are some of the films that are worth seeing for somebody who's never been to a festival? I know it's a tough question.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
So what are some of if you've never been to a film festival and they want to savor, they want to dip their toes in, what are some of the films you would recommend?
Well, the first thing I would say is it is a difficult question for the reason that people have such different taste. And one of our aims is to show a lot of different kinds of films. So I feel like there's something out there that will appeal to people who haven't been, and the trick is leading people to the films that they will want to see.
So what is that trick?
So one of the things we've done is organized our program into sections to help people find what they want. So I think for most people who haven't been to a film festival before, to concentrate on the marquee sections, the opening night, the big nights, and the special events is a great way to
dip your toe.
Dip your toe in.
So what is the opening night film this year?
So the opening night film is a film called Love and Friendship. It is directed by Whit Stillman, an American independent director, but it's based on a Jane Austen novella.
This is an unpublished one, right? The novella? I thought I had read it was not published.
I think
it
is. It's just not one of her better-known stories. And what's interesting about it is that the lead character is not particularly likable, or she's very charismatic and lovable, but not particularly nice. Maybe that's the way to say it.
So it's like that nursery rhyme, when the girl, when she's good, she's really, really good, and when she's bad...
Yes, she's very sharp. And she's played by Kate Beckinsale. It's a terrific performance, and Chloe Sevigny is in it as well. And it's really funny. It's got a lot of, broad humor and a lot of very smart humor in it as well.
So that's the opening night.
That's our opening night.
And then what are the other marquee films?
So the other big night films are centerpiece films, a film called Indignation, which is made by someone who's better known for writing and producing films, James Schamus. He's worked with Ang Lee. He's written a lot of his screenplays. And this is based on a Philip Roth novel, autobiographical, about a young Jewish guy in the 50s who ends up at a Midwestern college. He's played by Logan Lerman. And it's about how he defines his identity in that setting.
His Jewish identity?
I would just say his identity. In relationship to a beautiful young non-Jewish woman he becomes involved with, the dean of the college, but also with, the religious Jews in the Jewish fraternity who want him to join up, which he resists.
Gotcha. So this is the director's debut film?
It's his debut film, but as a director, meaning, he's been involved in producing and writing such spectacular work. It's not surprising that his debut film as a director looks very achieved and accomplished.
Very strong.
Yes.
Okay. So that is the Indignation is the other film. And the closing night film?
The closing night film is a wonderful documentary called The Bandits, directed by a Bay Area documentarian named Jesse Moss. And it's the story of Burt Reynolds and his friendship with a young stuntman named Hal Needham. And they kind of had a mutual admiration society. Burt Reynolds wanted to be a little bit more of a stuntman. That seemed a little cooler. And Hal Needham wanted to be, a little bit more than just a stuntman. And together they made a film called Smokey and the Bandit. So it's sort of a triple biography of the film and of both Hal Needham and Burt Reynolds.
Sounds like an interesting watch.
And the footage is just great. So, there's tons of leisure suits and big belt buckles and great old movie footage.
I have to ask you this question. How did you manage to get the elusive brothers Cohen, as I like to call them, Ethan and Joel Cohen? They don't make it to any film festival. And
yeah, I know. It's really special.
How did you manage that?
Well, I think partly it's because they're coming to help honor someone else.
And that is?
So we have an award. It's called the Mel Novikov Award. And it's given in honor of an organization or a person who works behind the scenes to help enhance the public's love of world cinema.
Much like you.
Kind of, yeah, exactly. So in the past, we've given it to people like Roger Ebert, but also to publications.
So this is unusual. You're giving it to Criterion this year.
Yeah, so this year it's going to Janus Films and the Criterion Collection, because really, they've done so much to make, DVDs fetish objects, really.
Right,
I mean, they're
collectors.
I know I'm like trying to have less stuff, but I cannot say no to a Criterion DVD. So they agreed to accept the award, and they've done a lot of wonderful restorations. So we were talking about what film we would show in connection with the award. And it turned out that they were just finishing restoring the Coen brothers' first film, Blood Simple. So they mentioned to the Coen brothers that they were going to do this, and it turns out that Mel Novikov, for whom the award is named, had a connection to the Coen brothers. He was a Bay Area exhibitor, and when they first directed Blood Simple, he was a huge supporter of the film, and he told people he was going to book it at his surf theaters, and he was really enthusiastic about it in a way that they felt really helped that film succeed and so helped their career. And they were so thankful to him. They actually named a character after him in Inside Llewyn Davis. If you remember, there's a character in that movie called Mel Novikov.
Is that the musician, the agent in the Midwest?
And he is named after Mel Novikov, for whom this award is named.
That's played by Murray. What's his name?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, that's named after...
That's named after the gentleman for whom this award is named.
Oh.
So when they heard that it was the Mel Novikov Award, they really wanted to pay tribute to the Criterion Collection, because the Criterion Collection has a terrific reputation for working with filmmakers and how they work with filmmakers.
Right.
And then the fact that it was named after this person who had been so supportive of their career.
You know who is missing from there? Jeff Bridges. It would be far out if we had the three of them on stage there. When is this, the event when the Coen brothers are coming?
This is Saturday, April 30th. At the Castro Theater.
And that's in the afternoon?
It is. It's at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
So this is a big win for you to get the Coen brothers.
It is a big win. Yeah, we're very excited.
And then you also are honoring a woman director.
We are. Mira
and this is the
are.
first time you're honoring a woman?
It's the first time we've given our directing award to a woman. We have a lot of awards at the festival. We have an award called the Persistence of Vision Award, which goes for people who work outside of narrative feature filmmaking, and those we've given many women that award, but the directing of narrative features, this is the first time we've honored a woman director.
Okay, and Mira Nair has come, I think, before to your festival, hasn't she?
I believe she has in the past.
She has. So, and that would be a big day too.
It will. It's going to be wonderful. We're going to show Monsoon Wedding as the film that we're screening. But even more exciting to me, you know, she's directing a big Disney movie. That stars Lupita Nyong'o and David Oyelowo, and we're going to show a sneak preview clip of that film during the...
And that film has already generated buzz, that they're saying that it could be an award winner.
Absolutely. For
I can't
acting
pronounce
too.
the name of the film.
The Queen of Catway, I believe it's
yeah,
called?
I didn't know how to spell Catway because I think it's Q-A-T-W-E. It had a... Okay, it's about a chess champion.
It is, yeah.
Okay, so folks will get to see for the first time.
Yeah, they won't see the whole film, but they'll see a good clip.
A clip from the first. Yeah. Then you mentioned that one of the things that you do is you help mold how people can see films. So you have big nights, you have masters, and you have something called Dark Wave.
We do. So that's for people who like something...
edgier.
Edgier, exactly. That's for like outre comedies or horror, sci-fi.
Not my cup of tea.
but it's the cup of tea of many people.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, so that's the late night screening.
This is at the Alamo Drafthouse.
It is, and starting last year, we enlisted the team of Drafthouse nationally to help program that section for us, because Tim League, who's involved in the Drafthouse, also runs a really important festival for this kind of film in Austin. And we thought, like, why not get the experts to choose some movies for us? So they put together 4 crazy, interesting dark wave movies for us.
Okay. How many world premieres do you have this year?
We have 2. We're not a festival that requires premieres.
Like not like Toronto.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because we are really want to be able to bring the best of the year to San Francisco.
So this exhibit
it has to be a San Francisco premiere.
Gotcha.
So we want to be showing things that haven't been shown a lot in the Bay Area, but
there's no business side to it, or do you have?
You know, it can happen, but it's not our main thrust.
Focus. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
But we do have 2 wonderful world premieres.
Okay. And you're doing something interesting for the past few years. It's just not film, but also music.
Yeah, well, for a while we have had this wonderful live music and film program. So we ask contemporary musicians to provide new musical scores, often to silent films, but not always to silent films.
Okay.
So this year we have the band Mercury Rev, who became quite popular in the 90s, and they've asked a friend of theirs, who's one of the Cocteau twins, who also runs the label on which their music is being released now, and they're doing a score to a film that's actually a film that has a soundtrack, but we're not going to play that soundtrack.
Okay.
So it was a very early sound film called Vampire by Carl Theodor Dreyer. Is
it a silent film? Or
well, when it was made, it was a sound film, but it was an early sound film. So it was shot in multiple languages, but it's with very, very little dialogue. And most of the story is still told with intertitles.
Early talkies, as they would say.
Very early talkies. So we're just going to turn that soundtrack down. And if anyone's curious about the original soundtrack, it just so happens that there's a beautiful Criterion Collection DVD of it. So you can either watch it the night before or the night after, but we're going to provide an alternative soundtrack by Mercury Rev.
Do you show silent films at all?
We do. You know, there's a fantastic silent film festival in the Bay Area that comes close after us. And they like to show much more classical accompaniment. And it's terrific. So, you know, with this, we're trying to do something a little different, which is maybe expose some people who are coming for the music to films they wouldn't see otherwise, and vice versa.
How did you become a film programmer?
In a very strange and indirect way. I started out as a film publicist, and at a certain point, I wanted to know more about filmmaking. So I enrolled in the documentary film program at Stanford University. I'm not sure I ever thought I was actually going to be a documentary filmmaker. I thought I might make behind-the-scenes videos.
What is this fascination with behind the scene with you?
I know, it's exactly. I like to say, I'm curious. I think that's the through line.
You're a
lurker.
I
like to know, I am. I like to know how things are made and why. And so documentaries seem to appeal to me, right? Because you can ask all the questions about why things are the way they are. But while I was at Stanford, I ended up going to a student film festival. And that was the moment where I was like, oh, this is a world I want to be involved in. Because this is people who are excited about seeing films, who want to watch films, who want to talk about films. I want to be, I think I liked the excitement of the event. Yeah.
So you majored in comparative literature, so I'm assuming that you have a love for stories.
I do, yeah. But it's funny because a part of the way through being a publicist, I also became enamored of real life stories. I do love stories and I love novels. When I read mostly nonfiction. You know, I was working on a movie called The Falcon and the Snowman. It's an old movie. I don't know if you remember it. Timothy Hutton and Sean Penn.
No, I don't.
And it was based on a nonfiction book, and I read the nonfiction book. And I think that was one of the first, like, really sort of narrative nonfiction books that I had read. And that definitely expanded my idea of what loving a story meant. So I still love stories, but I love real stories as much as fictional ones now.
My last question, since you love stories and you love going behind the scenes, tell us who are the other actors that are coming I know Stephen Fry is coming. He has a film.
He is. Stephen Fry is coming with a wonderful film based on a true story called The Man Who Knew Infinity.
Ramanujam.
Yes, it's the story of his time at Cambridge. And it's interesting because one of the through lines I see in the festival is about creative expression. And I really put this film in that category because the way math came to him was almost like a vision, and he had to learn to fit into this very academic world of Cambridge and express things the way they wanted them expressed.
So Stephen Fry will be here, and who else?
Well, Tom McCarthy is recently announced as the recipient of our Kamla Award. And so he's going to be here. He's going to show The Station Agent.
Lovely film.
Yeah, a hidden gem of an actor named Hampton Fancher, who's also a screenwriter. He was involved in getting Blade Runner optioned, and he wrote the first screenplay for it. One of the world premieres is a documentary about him called Escapes, and he's going to come and present that film. We have some wonderful undiscovered talent coming. We have 2 films about young people coming of age. One is called Morris from America. Another is called The Fits. We have the young actors from those coming. We have Kate Beckinsale coming. I think I might have mentioned that for opening night.
You have a lot of good people.
We have so many people coming. Yeah, we're still waiting to hear if Burt Reynolds will show up. We're hopeful.
Okay, if Burt Reynolds shows up, I'm sure there'll be a huge crowd waiting to see him.
Well, some lady threw her under things on the stage last time he last time he appeared. So we'll see what happens.
You need to bring in Tom Jones.
Exactly.
So the festival, the 59th San Francisco International Film Festival is from April 21st to May 5th in San Francisco and Berkeley.
Correct.
Okay. Rachel, thank you so much, and thank you for taking us behind the scene and offering us a peek into how festivals are created.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for watching. If you missed any of our shows, you can watch them on YouTube, and I'll be back again next week with another edition. Until then, goodbye.